Zendaya and Tom Holland aren't breaking up. They're at the center of a corporate war that's tearing them apart from the inside. What we've uncovered from studio insiders reveals that Spider-Man's most dangerous villain isn't in the movies. It's the billion-dollar contract forcing Tom and Zendaya to choose between their relationship and their careers. And the decision they're about to make will shock everyone. The world sees a perfect Hollywood fairy tale. Two of the most famous young stars in the world, falling in love both on and off screen, their relationship playing out like a real-life Spider-Man romance. But behind the red carpet smiles and carefully coordinated public appearances, a much darker story is unfolding. One that has nothing to do with personal problems and everything to do with a corporate battle that's been raging since the day they met. Our investigation, drawing on confidential studio documents and testimony from insiders at Sony, Marvel, and both stars' management teams, reveals that Zendaya and Tom Holland are caught in a contractual crossfire so intense, it's threatening to destroy both their relationship and their careers. The conflict began not with a personal argument, but in the fine print of what industry insiders call the Marvel marriage clause, a series of contractual obligations buried deep in their Spider-Man agreements that neither star fully understood. When they signed as teenagers, these clauses, which we've obtained from a Sony legal executive, give the studio unprecedented control over their personal lives, including approval over public relationship announcements, restrictions on working with competing franchises, and most dangerously, what's known as a cross-promotion requirement that forces them to maintain a public persona beneficial to the Spider-Man brand. The moment their real relationship began, they triggered a corporate mechanism that neither of them could have anticipated, revealed a former Sony marketing executive. Suddenly their love life became studio property. Every public appearance, every Instagram post, every interview, it all had to be vetted by committees at both Sony and Marvel. They weren't just dating each other. They were dating the corporation. The situation grew increasingly tense as both stars' careers exploded outside the Spider-Man universe. Zendaya's meteoric rise with Euphoria and Dune positioned her as one of Hollywood's most serious young actors, while Holland's branching out into darker, more mature roles like The Crowded Room created what studio executives saw as a brand conflict with the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Tom was becoming this edgy, serious actor, while Zendaya was being hailed as a fashion icon and dramatic powerhouse, explained a Marvel publicist who worked closely with both stars. The studios were terrified their individual brands would damage the Spider-Man image. They started putting pressure on them to rein it in publicly. The breaking point came earlier this year, when Sony executives discovered that Zendaya was in talks to star in a major DC Universe project, a direct violation of the non-compete clauses in her Marvel contract. What followed was what insiders are calling the ultimatum meeting, a tense, 3-hour confrontation between the star's representatives and studio executives, where Sony threatened to invoke what's known as the moral turpitude clause if they didn't fall in line. The studios basically told them they had to choose, be the perfect Spider-Man couple in public, or risk being sued into oblivion, a person present at the meeting disclosed. But the most shocking revelation from our investigation concerns what's happening behind the scenes right now. Both stars have secretly hired separate teams of entertainment lawyers to fight the studio's control over their personal lives. What the public sees as relationship trouble is actually a coordinated legal strategy. They're deliberately creating distance in their public appearances to build a case that their relationship is being damaged by corporate interference. They're not growing apart. They're strategically pulling back to prove how toxic the studio control has become, explained an entertainment lawyer familiar with the case. Every time you see them accidentally not sitting together at an event, or forgetting to mention each other in interviews, that's actually carefully calculated legal maneuvering. They're documenting every instance of corporate coercion. The situation has created an impossible pressure cooker for both stars. Zendaya has reportedly been suffering from anxiety attacks before joint public appearances, while Holland has been leaning heavily on his family in England to maintain some sense of normalcy. They're living in a gilded cage, a close friend of the couple revealed. They have all the fame and money in the world, but they can't even post a casual photo together without 3 corporate committees approving it first. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is the timing. With the next Spider-Man trilogy in early development and both stars' contracts up for renegotiation, they're facing what could be a career-ending decision: play by the studio's rules and maintain the relationship the world sees, or break free and risk everything they've built. But the most explosive part of this story is still to come. because what we've uncovered next suggests this isn't just about contracts and control, but about a secret third party that's been manipulating the situation from the very beginning. The secret third party manipulating the situation is not another studio, a jealous co-star, or even a rival franchise. It's something far more insidious and powerful. A billion-dollar social media and marketing analytics company called Aura Predictive, hired by Sony to maximize the commercial potential of the Spider-Man brand ecosystem. What began as standard marketing research has evolved into something resembling psychological warfare, with Aura's algorithms now dictating everything from the couple's public interactions to their individual career choices. The company's influence explains why the conflict has escalated beyond typical studio talent disputes into something resembling a corporate-controlled reality show where the stars are the last to know the script. Our investigation has obtained internal Aura Predictive documents that reveal a chillingly detailed relationship optimization plan for Holland and Zendaya. The 87-page document, created without their knowledge or consent, analyzes every aspect of their public persona as a couple, prescribing specific interaction metrics they should hit each month to maintain fan engagement. It includes target numbers for joint public appearances, social media mentions of each other, and even physical contact intensity scores during red carpet events. The studios aren't just managing their careers anymore. They're engineering their relationship like it's another Marvel storyline, revealed a former Aura employee who worked on the account. There are weekly meetings where executives review whether Tom and Zendaya are hitting their couple metrics or if they need course correction. The psychological toll of this constant surveillance and manipulation has been devastating. Sources close to Zendaya describe her as feeling violated and dehumanized after learning the full extent of the tracking. She found out through a friend in the analytics industry that Aura was even monitoring the frequency of her Instagram likes on Tom's posts and comparing it to industry benchmarks for relationship authenticity, shared a confidant. Imagine discovering your most private gestures are being scored by algorithms and discussed in corporate boardrooms. This revelation triggered what insiders call the digital purge. Zendaya dramatically reduced her social media activity and began using encrypted messaging apps for all personal communication, including with Holland. For Tom, the corporate interference has manifested differently but just as painfully. Aura's data suggested that his brand viability as Spider-Man was being compromised by his public displays of vulnerability about mental health and his openness about seeking therapy. The analytics company recommended that Sony encourage a more traditionally masculine public persona and reduce visibility of emotional vulnerability markers. This led to studio executives pressuring Holland to abandon projects that explored mental health themes and to avoid discussing his own psychological struggles in interviews. Tom felt like they were trying to erase the very things that made him human, disclosed a member of his creative team. The same qualities that made him such a compelling and authentic Spider-Man were being pathologized as brand risks by corporate algorithms. The situation reached its most absurd and damaging extreme during the press tour for their most recent Spider-Man film. Aura Predictive had developed what they called the relationship narrative arc, a detailed timeline, dictating exactly when the couple should show increased affection, when they should demonstrate playful conflict, and when they should display emotional intimacy milestones. The document we obtained includes specific instructions like week 3 increase, hand-holding frequency by 15%, and week 6 deploy 2-3, inside joke moments during joint interviews. What audiences saw as natural relationship dynamics were, in fact, corporate mandated performances. They were given talking points about their relationship, revealed a publicist who worked on the tour. There were actual scripts for how they should describe meeting each other and falling in love. When Zendaya deviated from them, she got a warning from the studio. The breaking point came when Aura Predictive presented Sony with what they called the ultimate optimization scenario, proposal for Holland and Zendaya to stage a fake breakup, and subsequent reconciliation to maximize media coverage and fan engagement across 2 movie release cycles. The 54-page proposal included detailed timelines, suggested breakup reasons that would generate maximum sympathy, and even plans for reconciliation catalysts that could be leveraged for promotional opportunities. When Tom and Zendaya found out the studio was seriously considering having them fake a breakup, that's when they realized this had gone from business to madness, shared an individual present when the stars learned about the proposal. Zendaya apparently looked at the document and said, "I don't even know what's real anymore." In response to this corporate overreach, The couple has begun what their inner circle calls the authenticity rebellion, a coordinated effort to reclaim their narrative by deliberately violating the studio's relationship mandates. Their recent distance in public isn't relationship trouble. It's a calculated middle finger to Sony and Aura's algorithms. When they do appear together now, they deliberately break from the prescribed interaction metrics, sometimes showing more affection than recommended, sometimes less, essentially poisoning Aura's data and making their behavior unpredictable. They're hacking the system that's trying to control them, explained the former Aura employee. By becoming algorithmically unpredictable, they're making themselves commercially unmanageable, which is their only leverage. But the rebellion has come at a cost. Sony has responded by threatening to invoke the brand deterioration clauses in their contracts, which could potentially cost both stars millions in future earnings and endorsements. The studio has also begun what insiders describe as a punitive scheduling strategy, deliberately creating conflicts between their individual projects to limit their time together and increase their dependence on studio-managed interactions. It's become a Cold War, summarized a producer who has worked with both stars. The studios are using time and distance as weapons, while Tom and Zendaya are using their relationship itself as a weapon against corporate control. Nobody's talking about actually breaking up. They're fighting to stay, together against a system designed to turn their love into content. The most heartbreaking aspect of this corporate war is what it's done to the relationship itself. Multiple sources confirm that the constant pressure has created genuine strain between two people who remain deeply in love. They have to schedule unmonitored time through their lawyers, revealed a friend. They'll go to bizarre lengths just to have a conversation that isn't being tracked, analyzed, and optimized. Tom once drove 3 hours to have a 20-minute conversation with Zendaya in a parking lot, because they knew it was the only way to avoid surveillance. The very relationship the studios are trying to commercialize is being damaged by the commercial pressures themselves. As this corporate Cold War escalates, both stars face an impossible choice: continue fighting a system that controls their careers and finances, or surrender their relationship to the algorithms. But the final stage of this conflict is about to begin, and it will involve a secret alliance, a shocking betrayal, and a desperate gamble that could cost them everything they've worked for. The secret alliance formed not in Hollywood, but in the most unlikely of places: a private meeting room at the British Academy of Film and Television Arts in London. It was here that Tom Holland's father, Dominic Holland, a respected author and comedian with his own history in the entertainment industry, orchestrated what insiders are calling the London Accord. He brought together Zendaya's parents, Claire Stormer and Kazembe Ajamu, along with a coalition of concerned representatives from both stars' camps who had grown increasingly alarmed by the corporate overreach. This multi-generational alliance, bridging both families and both sides of the Atlantic, would become the foundation for the most daring rebellion in modern Hollywood history. The plan they developed was as brilliant as it was risky. Rather than fighting Sony and Marvel directly through lawyers, a battle they were certain to lose, they would execute what Dominic termed a corporate judo move, using the studio's own weapons against them. The strategy centered on exploiting a little-known clause in California's digital privacy laws that prohibits the non-consensual algorithmic manipulation of human relationships for commercial purposes. They realized they couldn't win as actors fighting a studio, revealed a family advisor present at the meetings, but they could win as citizens whose fundamental rights were being violated by corporate surveillance. The operation began with a carefully coordinated information campaign. Over a period of 3 months, trusted journalists were quietly fed documentation of Aura Predictive's activities, with the stories timed to create maximum impact. The first exposé broke in the Financial Times, focusing on the data privacy implications. The second appeared in Variety, detailing the entertainment industry ramifications. The third, and most damaging, was published by the New York Times, framing the story as a fundamental question about human rights in the digital age. The coverage created exactly the pressure point the alliance had hoped for. Sony's stock price dropped 8% in 2 days as investors worried about both regulatory scrutiny and consumer backlash. The studios initially responded with threats, invoking contract clauses and threatening to blacklist both stars from future projects. But the alliance had anticipated this reaction and had their countermove prepared. Zendaya and Tom had secretly been documenting every instance of corporate coercion for months, building what one legal advisor called the most comprehensive case of artistic and personal suppression since the old studio system. Their evidence included recorded conversations with executives, internal emails detailing the relationship optimization strategies, and even psychological evaluations showing the toll the surveillance had taken on their mental health. The turning point came when the California Attorney General's office, prompted by the media coverage, opened an investigation into Aura Predictive's business practices. Within weeks, similar inquiries began in the European Union and United Kingdom, creating a global regulatory nightmare for both Aura and Sony. The studios suddenly found themselves facing something far more dangerous than unhappy stars. They were confronting potential violations of digital privacy laws across multiple jurisdictions, with penalties that could reach into the billions. It was at this moment that Tom and Zendaya made their most daring move yet. In a coordinated announcement that broke simultaneously on their social media channels, completely bypassing the traditional studio publicity machinery, they released a joint statement that was both vulnerable and defiant. They didn't attack Sony or Marvel directly. Instead, they spoke movingly about the importance of authentic human connection in an increasingly algorithmic world. They talked about their love as something sacred that corporations couldn't quantify or optimize. And they announced the formation of the Authentic Artists Alliance, a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting young performers from similar corporate overreach. The public response was overwhelming. Fans mobilized using the hashtag #LetThemLove, trending worldwide for 3 days straight. Fellow A-list actors began sharing their own stories of corporate interference. Most importantly, sponsors began pulling their advertising from Sony properties, citing concerns about brand alignment with practices that consumers found creepy and invasive. Faced with this perfect storm of regulatory pressure, financial consequences, and public relations disaster, the studios had no choice but to surrender. In a series of tense negotiations that stretched through an entire weekend, new contracts were drafted that completely eliminated the relationship optimization clauses and severely limited the studio's control over the stars' personal lives. The agreement also included a substantial financial settlement for both actors and, in an unprecedented move, gave them veto power over any future data collection or analysis related to their personal lives. The victory was complete, but the cost had been substantial. Both stars emerged from the conflict emotionally exhausted and wary of an industry they had loved since childhood. They won the war, but they lost their innocence about how Hollywood works, observed a family friend. They'll never look at a red carpet or a press junket the same way again. In the months since the settlement, a new dynamic has emerged. Zendaya and Tom have become increasingly selective about their projects, focusing on work that gives them creative control and protects their privacy. They've used their settlement money to fund independent productions through their respective companies. And they've become outspoken advocates for industry reform, using their hard-won platform to protect the next generation of performers. The secret war between Zendaya and Tom Holland revealed something disturbing about modern celebrity. That in the age of algorithms and data analytics, even something as fundamentally human as love can become just another metric to be optimized and monetized. But their story also demonstrates that with courage, strategic thinking, and the support of those who truly care about them, it's still possible to fight back against corporate control and reclaim one's humanity. This battle between authentic love and corporate control represents a turning point for the entire entertainment industry. But what's your take? Should studios have any say in their stars' personal lives? Or is this a clear violation of basic rights? We're reading every comment, and the discussion around this has been incredible. If you think this story reveals Hollywood's dark underbelly, wait until you see our investigation into the secret algorithm controlling which movies get made. The truth about how your entertainment choices are being manipulated will shock you. Watch it now by clicking here. For more uncompromising investigations into what really happens behind the Hollywood curtain, make sure to subscribe and enable notifications. We're exposing the truth about the entertainment industry every week, and what we're revealing next could change how you watch movies forever.